thing. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is our first podcast. So, no surprise, little hiccups at the beginning, but we are still in this thing. And in a couple of seconds, I am going to bring in our guest for this evening. I feel like that's like a super great teacher move. Like when you plan your lesson and then you think you got it all right, and it's like, mm-mm. So you kind of on the spot have to figure stuff out. That's what it is. So just enjoy the music and we'll get started in about 60 seconds. Welcome, welcome. Glad you all could join. About 30 more seconds, and we're going to dive in and bring in our guest. Now I see why when I'm like watching podcasts or something and people are looking down, they're like doing all this stuff in the background. I get it now. Right. All right. Bringing in our guest of the evening, our amazingly patient and wonderful Jennifer Irving Antonio. Woo, woo, woo. Thank you so much for your patience. Everybody who's joining or who will see this later on, because it will be up for the next 7 days, and then it's going into our membership vault. This is our very, 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 very first episode 1 of our podcast, BYOU Beyond the Classroom. My name is Rebecca Guillory. Joining me this evening is Jennifer Irving Antonio, former educator, now entrepreneur. I used to work in elementary school, but she was with the middle school babies, right, Jennifer? So already my hat goes off to you for your experiences and all that you have done. I'm going to share a little bit about you, and then I'm going to tag it over to you so you can add some flavor and add anything that I might have missed. So I already said Jennifer, former educator, now entrepreneur. Jennifer Irving Antonio wears a lot of hats, of course. Wife, mother, career student, former educator, really actually has been working with children and youth since 2006. So she is not new to this at all. She is true to it. So right now, one of the really awesome things that we're going to hear more about is her travel agency and really just the whole journey that she's been on, moving from being an educator to being an entrepreneur, what that's like, how it's impacted her life. And so, yeah, really, really excited about hearing more about your travel agency, Mia Bell Destinations. Did I say that right?
Correct.
Yes, awesome. And then also just the journey that led up to it. So just wanted to toss it over to you and hear more from you about just your journey and who you are.
Okay. Well, you summed it up pretty well. I used to be an educator. I still do a little bit of it. I go into the schools and help my teacher friends, and I sub about once a week. When I was planning my exit from education, I actually got my real estate license first, and I thought that was going to be my business. And it is something that I really love and have a passion for, but I didn't feel like it worked with my lifestyle and just wanting to be with my daughter as much as possible. And I don't have to do business, so just wanted to be available for my clients. And so I actually started a travel agency and thought it was going to be just something on the side, and it just took off and it became my full-time business.
Jennifer, I just love that you said like thought it was going to be something on the sides. I feel like that happens to a lot of folks. Like, yeah, I have a desire for living life differently. I
Mhm.
have this idea. I'm not really sure what it's like. People aren't going into it like, I'm going to make the biggest, best, I'm going to be the next Amazon or the next Nike.
Right.
Stayed with it, it evolved, and it just took off, and you're thriving in it. And so that's really exciting. And I can't wait to, of course, ask you more questions about it. But before I do, I wanted to just kind of take a look at what was in the news recently and get your take, your input. It's something that I saw on social media. And yeah, I just want to hear, from your role as a former educator, your thoughts on it. So I saw this. It was about it's a photo of a sick teacher who brought his laptop to the emergency room. He was in the hospital trying to finish up these grades. He finished the grades, but he also ended up passing away. I want to say it's the next morning, I believe. There's not a lot of details. All I know from what I saw was his daughter is the one who took this photo and put it on her Facebook page, and I didn't see the context of what she said. But I saw this and I was just immediately frustrated because the comments, everyone was glorifying this. Like, he's such a great teacher. He did such a good job. Those kids are going to remember him forever as if it's a good thing. Like, nobody was addressing the issue. So just wanted to hear your thoughts as a former educator on how this lands with you. And why do you even think something like this even happens with teachers?
I truly believe people don't realize how hard teachers work. They think it's an 8 to 5 job, and it's not. You cannot get everything done in the day. You got kids, and every day you're having to work on your feet, like, and think on your feet every single day. It's not, your day never goes how you plan it as a teacher. It's a lot of work to actually take off of work as a teacher as well. And I feel like I see a lot of teachers would get sick just from working just so hard, and the stress that
Mhm.
comes with it as well. And and another thing that I feel is that as an educator, I never saw great healthcare benefits for teachers.
Ooh.
And it's expensive to get healthcare as a teacher, which is unfortunate. I'm now under my husband's insurance, and I should have made that move a long time ago
Mhm.
because I paid for years excessively compared to greater benefits for less under him. And
Wow. That is, you know what? I remember, I won't name the school system district that I was in, but I did see a difference when I shift districts. And honestly, I think when they're trying to like negotiate the price and cost, they're looking like, oh, a lot of teachers in this district and this system are really young, so we'll give you a better price. But like in the average public school, there's such variety in age, like the new teacher versus the veteran teacher. So the prices are significantly higher. Like, I do remember. I'm glad you called that out because I do remember that. I don't know. When I saw this, I was just like, why are people glorifying this? And that actually makes me think about this question. I'm going to post it on here because I want everybody else to see it too. This idea here, and I think you talked a lot about it already. Um, but just like, why is it that teachers feel guilty about taking off of work? Like, why do teachers feel guilty for doing that? Because I know you mentioned, like, yeah, it's hard to take the taking off work, or trying to get to the point where you can take off work is more work on you to even do that. Do you think there's something else that could be there too, around like why teachers are just like, "Ah, I'm not going to take off."
I mean, there's just a lot of pressure in education, and you don't have enough time to get everything done. Like, even trying to meet the time constraints of curriculum, follow what the district wants. Towards the end of my career, I felt as though we were testing so much that we could barely cover
Ooh.
all of the content that we had to teach. And another thing that I even saw this, is I helped a friend out that was going through a divorce.
Mhm,
I go in her classroom to teach. This is my content. I'm familiar with it. And
mhm.
I'm there for 3 days so she can handle what she needs to handle. The principal doesn't know she hasn't come back yet, but she's been off. First thing they do, come in to do walkthroughs.
No.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw it so many years in a row that that when you're not there, they can't get to you. So as soon as you get back, they're coming to you, and you've been off for a while. You're trying to play catch up and
Yeah.
everything. And I mean, I feel like there's guilt comes from from the top as well. Like
Yeah.
it makes the teachers feel away when they have to take off, and the parents, so it's hard.
God, I know. Yeah. It really, it's like everywhere you look, there's somebody pulling that needs something from you. You know how I always say, like, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first, but you can't do that because you have the students in your classroom, you yourself, you have your daughter at home, you got your husband, you might have your pets, you might have family, parents or siblings, or like other things to take care of. But like you said, it's not a regular 9 to 5. And it's no diss. I mean, but this space is the space for educators. So we're keeping it real for educators. It's not like I don't know what goes on in corporate America because I've never worked in corporate America. But what I have noticed is majority of the time it's an easier to clock out at the end of the day. Like there is no let me take all of this work every day home on the weekend all the time in the summer in the winter.
Yeah.
It don't matter. So yeah, it's just hard. It's very disheartening. And I'll be honest with you, Jennifer, this was something that I like. I don't miss this part of the system of making me feel guilty when I earn all of these days, but I feel like if I use them, you're gonna look at me like I'm not good at my job, or like what your friend experienced. So yeah, it's just uh it's just a lot. It's just a lot. So I want to just dive into it, like especially because I know we were having a lot of fun at the beginning. We
Mhm.
were talking, y'all. For the people who are joining us now, let me just tell you, me and Jennifer have had a good conversation, and we thought y'all were hanging out there with us, and y'all were not there. Mm-mm. So definitely want to honor your time, Jennifer, and thank you for your patience. And let's just dive into it. So the first thing I'm just really thinking about is like, what was, and you've kind of hinted at it already. Like you mentioned, you wanted to spend more time with your daughter, but what was that moment, like that one moment when you realized, nah, I got to go. Like when you realized it was time for you to leave the education system. Like, can you just tell us like what led to that decision?
Okay, so it's more than one moment. Let me just say
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And I kind of have to give you the full story to kind of make it
Yes.
make sense. Okay.
Yes.
So, of course, the pandemic changed a lot for education. Um, I was I enjoyed the time that I got at home with my daughter because she was in school, I was working, I was coaching. Um, I didn't realize, how much time I didn't get with her until the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we fast forward to the 2020-2021 school year. That school year was a lot. In my school district, in my school particularly, the kids were either virtual or they were in person
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning of the school year, but every 6 weeks it was changing. So you had these rosters changing every 6 weeks, kids either going home or coming in and out. But then as a teacher, I'm expected to be like a content creator. I have to record these lessons. I have to have everything online. I have to keep up with the kids that were coming and going. And then
Mm-hmm.
I remember towards the end of the year it was like, okay, teach these kids in person at the same time while you teach a full roster online.
Remember
And
that.
that was just a lot. And then dealing with, I was also a coach. I coached basketball and track during that time, and just having to put up with all the constraints of the COVID-19 requirements that they put on us as coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So I during the pandemic, during the summer, I actually got my real estate license. So I was kind of plotting, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't feeling like I had to leave education that year.
So the
The
pandemic initially wasn't like the turning point yet. Part of it, but not all of it?
I'm just gonna say the pandemic to me changed education. Like it changed kids as well. Like as far as how I feel they learned, how I feel, they
Yeah.
were at school and everything. It just changed a lot of things. And so that year, that the pandemic happened and then we're coming back into school and everything, um, it kind of had me like, maybe I want to do something else. But that
Mhm.
next year, 2021, 2022 school year, I knew I needed to get out because I felt like my passion for it was leaving. And
Mhm.
I don't think you should do something when you don't have the passion for it, your heart's half in it. But I still had the love for education that it was like you know, maybe I just need a break. If I have to come back to it, I can.
Yeah.
Um, so I resigned that year, and was gonna focus on real estate and everything.
Mhm.
And probably a week before school started, my teacher friends, my principal, they started texting me, and they were just in a bind. Like, it was just, you, it's hard to get teachers now. It's hard. And so they asked me to come help initially. And then
Mm.
my principal kind of said, well, or can you come back full time? And it was
Wait,
like,
you had just resigned and they
I,
asked you to
I
come right
resigned in May, but back in August, I'm getting texts and calls from teachers, friends, and everybody that knew that I was trying to
Yeah.
leave. And so I agreed to come back, and I was like, well, I don't want to. You're asking me to do all this work as a sub, so I might as well go back full time. And uh, but at the same time, I had started my travel agency too, and I
Mm.
had trips planned. And so I came back with the, hey, well, I already have this booked, I'm going to need this time off. And it was said it wasn't going to be a problem, but you know how that goes. It became a problem. Yeah.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so another turning point for me was like, yeah, I have to be done with this. Is that I had a teacher friend that bought a house with his wife, and their closing got moved. I had already put in that date before I came back when I needed to take off for their closing. I
Yeah.
had to change that date. This was supposed to be a day that I'm so happy for these people.
Yeah.
Before I walk into the closing, I get a text from the principal, and it just kind of like stole the joy from me. And I was just like, I do my work. I work even when I'm not there, So I just felt like at that point, no, I can't have this type of like negativity on me, or just from taking a day off,
Yeah.
So that happened. And then from that point on, I blocked my principal, because you're not going to take my like,
Why are you texting me on my day off though?
exactly. So I blocked my principal, because at that point I had trips to go on. You're not going to give me that feeling when I'm also on my vacations,
Right.
when you knew I resigned, but I came back more so as a favor to my former team, and,
Yeah.
people that I had a relationship with at the
Yeah.
school. So, but that year, this last year, coming, because I just finished in May, um, I did not coach. My daughter was not in any extracurricular activities. All I did was teach, and I was so exhausted. And I felt like it affected my health. Like, I wasn't even working out anymore. It was hard to even like cook and meal prep the same. Like, I just was every day I was just so tired,
Yeah.
exhausted. I'm like comfort eating, and I'm like, this is not good for me. Like, this is not, it just
Mhm.
takes the stress, my health. Um I I feel like as a teacher sometimes you have to choose, like, oh, am I going to be here for this benchmark test, or am I going to go to my daughter's field trip or things like that? And I didn't like that feeling. Like, and then also her school hours changed to the point where I couldn't even drop her off at school. I couldn't
Mhm.
pick her up already because I'm still working, and so it's like I'm putting everything above family, and it didn't feel good. So I think the pandemic opened my eyes to that. And then I watched kids just get lower and lower, lazier and lazier, and just parents. I feel like parents aren't. I don't know if they got tired, but it just wasn't the same level of accountability and like just involvement with parents. Like, I probably got the least parent emails, even with me reaching out to them, calling them, trying to,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
this is going on with your kids, but it was like they just weren't there. So I mean, it was
It's
just a
like
lot.
wrong across the board. Everyone's like over it, tired, exhausted.
Yeah,
I saw something on social media not too long ago. It was like, okay, the pandemic, yes, was 4 years ago, but it was also like yesterday in terms of how we are still dealing with the emotions and trying to like
the
heal
gaps.
from the gaps. Yeah. So the education system, I think, one of the other, there are other industries, yes, but again, this is all about educators. It was just an industry that got hit really hard, like really, 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 really hard. And I think it's because you were a servant, servant leader. Like, you were serving your community through your role as an educator. Like, that's service type work. Like, you're serving others, you're giving to others, right? You're leading because you are their teacher. Like, you're giving them guidance, you're being creative, you're doing all of these things. And then the weight of the pandemic and having to make all of those changes, no one was giving you a handbook for it. You just had to figure it out. And you were still doing that. And I can just imagine how challenging. I think I was, yep, I was an assistant principal during that time. So my lens was different. And at the during that year, I was like, same as you, like, mm, I think I'm gonna head out. I think I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Like, is
What
it
else is there?
just yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot from all sides. Like everyone is tired, kids tired, they're changing, parents are tired. You know what though, Jennifer was crazy. Like everybody in the world in the nation was like, teachers deserve so much more. We need to give them more. We need to help them and give them resources and increase their pay. Did you see any of that happen after the pandemic started to kind of wane and we weren't really in it anymore? Did you see any changes like positively?
No. And then actually the last year that I was a teacher, my pay was less because insurance went up because
Oh,
of the pandemic and the medical costs and all that. So my take home pay became less because of that. So we did get a raise, but it didn't keep up with, benefits and all that and cost of living and everything. So
yeah. Okay. So cost of living is going up, that it's not matching the man.
with
And
the
so
raise.
and so now you find yourself like, I'm in this place. I made a decision. That's a bold decision, by the way, because there's a lot of teacher friends that have a desire to do what you did, but there's a lot of fear. So can you just talk to us a little bit about that? Like, that fear of, yeah, I'm frustrated by what's happening in the school system. Maybe I don't really like my school leader. Maybe there's all these things going on, but I'm gonna get paid every 2 weeks, so I'm just gonna stick it out until I retire. You know, were there any fears that you encountered or things you were worried about, or how did you kind of navigate that?
I think the fear for most people is that when you go from a salary to an unknown, that's kind of like scary. And I had some fears, but I was ready to jump into it. But I felt like when I resigned the first time, I didn't get to enjoy it before. It was like, oh, wait, I'm back in this thing, And once I got back into it, like I told you, the first time I resigned, I was like, if I have to come back to teaching, I can do it again. Maybe I just need a break from it. This second time, I was getting to the point where I didn't know if I was going to make it to the end of the semester. I didn't know, like looking in October, it was like hard to see me making it to May, and I just felt as though like it teaching should not have been a hell no. I never want to do this again. And it's a hard feeling to be in a system you're so frustrated by, but you still have a love for the kids, a love for learning, love for teaching and all that. But thinking about like a can I do this? Can I keep going? And so
Yeah.
um the freedom that I was desiring, the I it just overpowered my fear
Mm,
of sticking to a steady check. So let me just say that, like, I've always felt like God will bless you. I've never went without. It will come. And
mhm.
so I laugh at myself all the time because a lot of times I'll have this faith and I don't know where it comes from and things I should be afraid of.
Yeah.
I choose faith instead. And that's come with age that I probably didn't have when I was younger, but now I'll choose faith over anything now. So that's
Ooh.
just how I choose to live.
No, I love that. I'm here for it, having that faith to know that God's gonna work things out.
Yeah.
And that's, guiding you up to this point so far, and it keeps guiding you. I think that's beautiful. And you also speak to this idea around the pain of where I am is so great that I'm willing to risk the possible pain of the unknown. And
Right.
I really am so thankful you brought that up and brought that to light, because it's so true. People don't, a lot of people talk about like, I want to do this and I want to try that. But if you're comfortable, you're not making any changes, then it's not. And I don't mean pain always has to be like a daunting, horrible, or tragic experience, but you need a little bit of a push. Like something has to want to push you from, okay, this is, it sucks, it's annoying, but it's not painful enough for me to actually want to leave. I'm just going to stick it out and complain about it. Whereas you're like, the pain of staying there. And your story is so unique, Jennifer, because you were willing to go back. You left, set that boundary and was like, okay, but then you cared so much. And that's what I think a lot of people in education and outside use against educators, right? It's like, I know you care about the kids. I know you know, care. You don't want us to be, you know, you care about your other teammates, your colleagues. Y'all built relationships over the years. And
Yeah.
so it's really hard to leave them, even when you want to do something else. You want to help. And that's what you did. And now, because of how it unfolded, it's like, oh, I was gonna come back, but now I'm not. So walk us through that, as much as you know, as much as you can, trying to get a visual, because I have teacher friends who are always like, but how do you actually do it? Like, you were in the education system, you were working full time, you already talked about all the woes, like I gotta I gotta work after work. I'm trying to schedule my, you know, get to my kid stuff. I'm not having time for her. And how are you able to, like, what was your time management strategy for being able to get, even though you switched out of real estate, but getting that license? And then after you decided, you know what, I'm gonna try this other thing. How are you able to make time to build a business and to do what you needed to do to make that work while you were still working full time?
So with real estate, like I told you, I got that license in the summer. Like we were at home, nothing to do. I learned it, took my test, did all that during the summer. And then um that year, I just when I did have free time, I would study some more. When it came to travel business, after the pandemic, people wanted to travel,
Mhm.
myself included. And so I took a trip with some friends, and getting ready for that trip, I was like, huh. We used a travel agent, and I was like, I think I can do this. So I looked into it some more. And then before I resigned for the first time, I jumped into it and started it. And then over that summer, I put time towards learning the business, learning, as much as I can, and getting the trainings and setting things up for my business. And like I told you, I thought it was going to be something on the side, like, I want to travel some. And
Yeah.
then it just kept just growing and growing. And so, um, I didn't put myself out there as much while I was a teacher, that I was had this travel agency. And then um once I left education, it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So then I really poured my time into it. But
Mm.
I
No, but
mean,
that's really cool though, because it sounds like you had that time while you were still in the classroom or in the school system to kind of test it out, kind of build. So when you were ready to say, you know what, I'm not coming back, you already had some things in place.
yeah.
So I want to just dive a little bit more there, like, because again, if someone, like, if our teacher friends have literally never started a business, like, at all, some things that we think are like, yeah, that's something, I mean, we, because you know it now, but try to take yourself all the way back to the beginning when you were like, okay, I'm gonna do this travel agency. What, as you're building the foundation for your, like, what was the first thing, if you can remember, the first few things that you did, like,
Well,
to
I
actually
mean,
say, I am a business owner now? Like, what did you have to actually physically do that, to become that?
as an educator, I feel like we have a natural inclination to research things.
I agree. Agree.
So, I mean, the first thing that you have to do before you start anything, you have to do your research. And that was probably months and months before I actually, took the leaps, just doing my research and just getting as educated about the process and what would go into it, and, which way I want to, lean towards before starting this business. So, you know, I started my business in May of 2022, but I probably was researching in September, of
Mhm,
2021. So
mhm.
I spent you have to spend some time just, learning what the steps are and how you want to do it. I mean, you may not take that much time, but I did because I had a full-time job, so
Right, right, right. But you know what? I actually love that, because one thing I share with educators is like, and I think you mentioned this, that might have been when we were just you and I talking, but yeah, like, we're not saying go out, like, what's today is Thursday, January 25th, quit your job today and just like figure it out. No. And I agree with you. Educators are like the smartest people in the world. We're definitely going to do all our research. We're
Mhm.
going to figure it all out. We're going to ask questions, everything, read the books, Google, like, all the things that we need to do before we make a, a decision. So I glad that you lifted that up. But it's like, okay, so how do you Well, you know what? Let me pause there because I see there's a comment. I don't want to miss it. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
Somebody had a comment. It's from Josh. What is the expectation of teaching? Like, oh, part time versus full time. So were the expectations on you the same? Like, because you mentioned, if you're working full time and then you came back, or maybe there's a clarifying question there, like you came back to education. Did you feel like there was the shift in the weight of things that you had to do in your responsibilities, or was
Okay,
it
so maybe he got confused when I was saying that they asked me to come back to help, but I came back, but then it was like, or you could come back full time. So the difference was they wanted to me either like, oh, could you just maybe sub until we can get somebody, or can you come back full time?
Mhm.
And I went back full time,
Yeah.
and from what I saw that year, it was not less expectations; it was more, if anything, out of all the years I've been in education.
Yeah.
So like I told you, I was so exhausted because it was like I used to coach. I'm doing this with my daughter. All I did was teach this year, and
More tired than you were.
yeah, and there were just things that were just added to teachers' plates, and I don't see that going down.
Yeah. And that, I think that's the most, I don't know, the most frustrating part about it, because one of the things that really concerns me, as both of us, we sound, it's like you love kids. Like we're not trying to leave and then leave kids without really great teachers. And like, what is the education system doing to make sure you keep great teachers? Because right now, as it stands, it's especially after the pandemic, it really seems like what used to be a sustainable career choice. Like there are folks who were able to retire from education, and a lot of us get into it thinking, yeah, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is my calling. This is what I'm going to do. And now a lot of teachers are second guessing and like, you know what? It's not what it was when I started, and it seems like it's never going to, like, you want to have hope, and you also want to, how can I say this? Honor what your needs are for your life and
Okay.
how you want to move forward. So I don't know. That just always, I'm thinking about that. Like, do you think that it's still sustainable? Like, do you think there is anything that could be done that would make you want to go back to education, or like go back full time? Like, what is the biggest difference that you see in your life, 9 to 5 versus, working for yourself? I guess that's two questions, really.
Well, to answer your first question, could I see myself going back to do it full time? No. Um, it's a never at this point. Like I
Wow.
said, I still help my teacher friends. I still have a love for kids. I was at a championship basketball game last night. I saw a lot of former students. I'm gonna always hug, love on, support those kids. I'll go in and help sub, but full time, no. The freedom that comes with working for yourself
Mm.
is so great that I cannot ever see myself working for somebody else again. Like, and then I had negative experiences with working under somebody that I thought, I'm doing a favor for you coming back, and just the treatment that I experienced when I did go back. So I, I don't want to have those negative experiences again. But
Yeah.
time freedom, financial freedom, all of that has just become way more important to me than working in as a full time educator.
Yeah.
And I'm able to volunteer my daughter's school. Like I was able to go read with her class this year, go to all her parties and things like that. I mean, she would always feel, oh, you're with your kids, you can't come to my school,
Oh,
and
baby.
so, I mean, she's been really excited this year about that, and I hated having to choose, "Oh, we have STAR testing, I can't go to, this event at your school," things like that, so,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I'm done with that full time.
That
It
chapter is over.
Yeah, it's over, but I think I will continue to do what I'm doing, volunteering in schools and helping teacher friends here and there where I can, so.
Yeah. And I know they appreciate you because, your expertise and, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
everything that
because
I'm saying.
really certified teachers don't go sub. It's very rare. Like when you have subs, it's like oh, nothing's getting accomplished that day,
Yeah, that's, yeah. Yeah.
It's like a lost day for most teachers, but they're happy when I come in because we're gonna get some stuff done.
Yeah.
And I am a certified teacher, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's hard. Yeah, it's it's a whole different world on the other side. I remember this might have been, honestly, Jennifer, don't make me have to even think about it. I want to say 2015, but that could be wrong.
Okay.
But it was, so I was contracting with schools. At that time, I had a business called Tutor McGillery. And so I was providing literacy intervention. So, I was contracting with schools. And I remember the first time during a Monday through Friday, I went out to go for a run, like around 10 a.m. Yo, my mind, honestly, my mind was blown because I had, when you only know a 9 to 5, like,
Mhm.
there are people doing stuff that is outside of that. But until
Mhm.
you experience it, it's just like, I'm out here
Didn't
making
you make you feel
groceries at
free?
oh
Didn't you
my
feel
god. Oh my god. Oh my god. So free. Like, making grocery at 8:15 a.m. is just like a joy to me. It is
Yeah.
a joy, like, to just get up on a random Wednesday and go run an errand while everybody else is at work. So yeah, I love it. So I agree with you. I share your sentiments around full time. That's not the
Yeah.
no,
Well,
I'm done
I
with
don't
that.
want people to think you don't work as hard with your own business
Thank you
or
for
that it's not full time. Because I do feel like I put in a lot of hours with my business, but I shape it how I want to shape it. So it may not look like a traditional 9 to 5, and I can do the things I want to do, at a certain time, like maybe work out, go to the store, run
yes.
some errands. But I mean, working for yourself is still a lot of hours.
Yes. I'm so glad that you named that. I am
Mhm.
so glad that you named that because we've just had so many different juicy topics in 56, not even 56 minutes since we've been live, but 36 minutes. I probably would have forgot to mention that. And that is so true because I don't think we should ever like social media, which I have a question about that. I'm gonna come back to it. I hope, if I don't forget. But social media makes people think like, oh, get 1 million followers, then you're going to be a millionaire. Like, just go out there and just put some pictures out, and now your business is going to be thriving. And look, I did it. You can do it too. And that is just so false and so fake and so phony. So I'm glad that you named that because there is work behind anything that you choose to do. Just like you have to work in the classroom or work in the school system, the word work doesn't go away. It's just you're shifting where you put the energy for what you're working on. Did I kind of say capture that right?
Yeah, exactly. You're
Yeah.
right.
So to that point about social media, because people do think like, oh my God, I have to have a bazillion follow. Like, my business, especially now in the era of social media, my business is not going to thrive. It's not going to grow. No one's going to find me if I don't stay in front of social media 24/7. So we know a lot of people think that. So anything that you can share for our teacher friends out there who are thinking they want to start a business, maybe they're kind of on social media but not really, and that's just not even where their head is. They just want to focus on the business. How do you even go about getting client, or can you just speak to the idea of whether it's marketing or networking, or I think that's people's fears. Like, how am I going to get my first customer? Like, how is anybody going to buy anything from me? Can you speak to that experience?
So, I can speak to that definitely. I think that I thought that was initially important. I thought that I needed to build up a social media. I needed to be heavy on marketing. And I was actually, this last school year that I was teaching, I listened to the radio before and after school. And I can't remember the Houston rapper that it was, but I know it's a Houston rapper, like one of the classic rappers.
Mhm.
He said something that stuck with me. He said that followers don't equal dollars. And I kept that in my head, and
Word.
I really wish I remember which rapper it was, but that kind of stuck with me, and I kind of had to shift my mindset and see that that's very true. I don't have a lot of followers. I don't make the content like I should. I don't um put a lot on social media. It's time consuming.
Mhm.
But I saw that when I did, that didn't increase how much money I was making. Um,
Mhm.
Actually, the way that I make most of my money is that I travel and I post in my stories, and I have a private Instagram, Facebook with under 1,000 on Facebook, under 500 on Instagram. I have no desire to be like a public
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
and just, oh, I need followers and all that. But when I travel, my follows go up, my requests go up, and the money goes up. And even last year, I haven't had a full year of not being a teacher and running my business. So from January to December of this year, that will be my first full year in my business. But I set a goal of how much I wanted to sell last year, and
Mhm.
I didn't meet my goal, but I got 70%, 76% of my goal.
Ooh, that's
That's working
awesome.
as a teacher from, January to May. And then the rest of the time, I've had time to put in my business. So I think that this year I'll be able to meet my goals, and it has nothing to do with followers. It has nothing to do with social media and the marketing. And I mean, maybe if I put some effort into that, maybe that will help things grow. But I've just had supportive family and friends, and then actually strangers came with some like different travel agent websites that I'm on, and different countries that I have expertise in that people have sought me out. But
Nice. I that is first of all, you kind of glaze over like, oh, 70%, not even in your full
oh,
year full.
76. Yeah, 76. So yeah, I was
I'm gonna give you that
20.
76% is amazing, Jennifer. Like that is amazing. People would kill for that kind of high percentage in less than a year of starting your business. And so, first of all, kudos to you. Like, I believe that you're going to exceed that goal this year. You already almost made it in less than a year. So, man, that's amazing. And I'm so glad that you spoke to that because I think it'll be comforting for our teacher friends to hear. Like, if you don't like to be on social media, like, that's not your thing. Now, I am on social media. I just honestly got comfortable with showing my face consistently.
Mhm.
And to your point, it is that can end up being a whole extra job if you let that consume you. And so I'm really big on using other resources so that I can schedule this stuff out a week or 2 weeks in advance. And half of the time I've scheduled it out, I'm like, oh, that came out today. Good job, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It can be a very all consuming thing. So, man, kudos to you. Like that is awesome, awesome, awesome. So, one thing I'm wondering, I know we're getting kind of ready to close out, but I definitely want to ask this question before we close out for our teacher friends who will watch this that are really, really thinking, maybe they have some of the same sentiments that you shared earlier about what you were feeling that led you to decide to transition out of the classroom, out of the school system. So they're considering, like, you know what, I want to start my own business. Um, and maybe they're like, yeah, I want to start a side hustle and just kind of see where it goes. What would be like the most important like advice that you would share with them on this evening?
I would tell them to choose what they're passionate about, find something that they can do around that passion. Because when it doesn't feel like work, it's always great,
Mm,
when it's something you love, you're going to work harder towards it. I love to travel. So that was easy for me to be passionate about. And
mm,
travel doesn't have to feel like work. The things I'm doing, um, they work for me and in the lifestyle that I want to have. So I think you have to really map out what you want your life to look like, you
mhm.
know, what your goals are, what your family situation is, because if you have a child in college or things like that, that it can look a lot different. But yeah, choose your passion first, and then maybe start a business from there.
I love that. I appreciate you so, so much. Of course, I can't say enough. You're going to forever be an important memory to me because you're my very first guest on my very first episode of my very first podcast. And you were spitting so much information. Like you were just really open and transparent and authentic about your journey. And is there a website that you could share with us for where we could find more information? Because I love taking trips. So,
Sure. I can be found online at www.miabelldestinations. Also, I have a Facebook business page, Mia Bell Destinations as well, and I am on Instagram as Mia Bell with an E on it. Destinations.
all right. Did we get it right there?
Yes, that is it. Yes.
MiaBellDestinations.com. All right. So everybody watching, make sure you go and check out MiaBellDestinations.com so you can book your next travel event. Now, before we go, some of you all might be wondering, like, is this the first? Is this also the last podcast? Absolutely not. We will be here Same space, different time in February, on February 6th, I believe. And we got a really awesome educator that is going to be joining us. Her name is Becky. We have the same name, but she goes by Becky. And Jennifer, check it out. She's been in education for 20 years. And then one day just said, I'm ready to, start a new journey. She sold almost all of her possessions,
Wow.
left her job, and she is getting ready to do this amazing hike. Like, she's in her description, she describes herself as like, a wanderer. Like, she is just out there living her life. She teaches online, but in different countries. Like, she's always traveling. So I'm excited to have her on, and just so excited to have you on this evening. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everybody, you want any more information? If you're a teacher and you're like, you know what? I really, really want to start a business. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. Please visit my website, believebeyondyou.com, and join our membership, join our community so you can get the support that you need to build your business. So we can do what Jennifer did, right? Like, take that school year to just build your business. And then you can make a decision at the end. Do you want to stay, or do you want to jump out in there and live that entrepreneur life? So y'all have a great night. We will see you all next month. Bye.